Hi writers! Today I'm talking about the biggest lie fiction writers tell themselves to self-sabotage their writing goals. Now before I really dive into this topic, because this is kind of a big topic, I'd like to say this is the second video in a little mini video series I'm doing to launch my new class, which is coming January 17th. January 17th is the first day of class. I'm really excited about this one. It's called Fiction Writing for Highly Sensitive Creatives. And I'm going to be covering all things fiction and all things fiction writing and some of the really unique problems and challenges that highly sensitive, intuitive people go through when they try to write fiction. So the goal of this class, I'm designing it in such a way to really give writers a transformation, to take writers from that place where you feel stuck, you feel discouraged about your writing, you feel really frustrated. I hear a lot from people, I can't start, I can't finish, I get stuck in the middle, I get lost in the middle of the story, fiction writing is too hard. Taking people from that place and moving them to a place where they're excited and they're inspired and they can start to see how all the moving pieces of writing fiction come together, and then they feel ready to take action, ready to write the novel they know is inside of them, and ready to write. So that's what we're going to be doing in this new class. It will include live classes and silent writing sessions. I love doing silent writing sessions as part of all of my classes. Those of you who have been in my classes before can attest to how powerful these silent writing sessions are. So today we're talking about the biggest lie that fiction writers tell to self-sabotage themselves. And this is so important because this is something we're going to be covering in the class on fiction writing. And this is something I see all the time. I see it with clients, I see it with students, I see it with people on the internet who talk to me randomly or who email me randomly who are really struggling to write stories, whether that be a long form piece of writing like a novel or short stories or even flash fiction. Almost every writer who's stuck will tell me, I have to have it all figured out before I begin, right? They'll say it in various ways in different forms, but that's really the root of it. I have to have it all figured out before I begin. And so they will try to plan the story. They'll try to like outline the story, sometimes to death. They're going through multiple outlines. They're trying to know the ending of the story before they've even written the beginning. They're trying to know the entire story arc, how the story moves and the entire breakdown of the story. And a lot of times they even want to know exactly what genre they're writing in or exactly who the audience is going to be. Who's going to read this? Who's going to buy this? Who's going to be interested in this? So these are all valid questions. And of course, as a writer, you are going to ask yourself these questions when you're writing a novel or you're writing fiction in any form. But when you get too caught up in these questions, when you start going to these questions from a place of anxiety and fear, because you feel very uncertain, maybe you've never written fiction before, or maybe you've never, quote unquote, successfully written fiction before, you start getting really nervous and panicky, like, can I pull this off? Can I do this? And then you start asking yourself these questions over and over again, and you start trying to plan and plot and control everything. And what happens is that this freezes people. It overwhelms the brain. It's too much, right? So we tend to sort of like get paralyzed in place and we can't go any further, and we usually give up on the story, or we don't start at all because we're frozen and we're overwhelmed. And every time we try to think about it and work out the answers to the questions, that again seems to make it worse because we're going into thinking and we're trying to use our thinking skills to think our way out of a problem that cannot be solved through thinking. That is the key. So not only does this overwhelm us, but knowing all of these things ahead of time, planning all of these things ahead of time, controlling every single one of these little pieces, it's impossible to do. And it's unrealistic. If you talk to Stephen King or Danielle Steele or any other writer out there who's written tons and tons and tons of books, they will tell you you cannot control the process. You can't plan every single little thing. And sometimes it gets scary. Sometimes you're going to be in a place where you don't know what happens next and you have to wait for that next little piece, right? So that is one of the things we're really going to be working with intensely in this new class of mine is how to let go, how to trust the process, right? How to not plan, basically. And this is where people always ask me, if I totally let go if I don't plan anything, then how am I going to know which direction I'm going in, and how am I going to know if I'm going in the right direction? This is another big thing for anxious writers and panicky writers. They're like, I really want to know I'm going in the right direction. That is what we're going to be learning. I'm going to bring in a lot of stuff from my intuitive writing method, which is an extremely popular video course I put out, a couple of years ago now. I still get feedback on that course every single day from people who say, this has changed my life. So we're going to be using a lot of the principles of that intuitive writing method in the class. And I'm also going to introduce new stuff too, ways that you can feel more comfortable being uncomfortable, ways that you can move yourself out of that anxious overthinking space into a solid intuitive connection with your creative self. So maybe you don't know everything, and maybe you're not sure of everything, but you still feel okay, and you still feel okay enough to move forward with the story you want to write. So that's what we're going to be learning. Basically, how to move out of thinking and how to learn how to feel your way through writing your manuscript or writing your story, writing a short piece of fiction even. It can be a really magical process, and I've had past clients and students who've taken my classes and they said, I didn't know what I was in for with this class. I didn't really know what you were talking about when I signed up for it, but it sounded like it might help. And then a month later, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I feel magical about my writing process again. This is great. I'm kind of glad I didn't know, because it was this great unfolding, that happened to me over the course of 4 weeks. So I really hope you'll join us if you are one of those stuck writers, overthinking writers, telling yourself you have to have it all figured out. And of course, no one can do that. So then you've completely self-sabotaged yourself before you've even begun, because you're telling yourself that lie. It's okay if you are. We all do it from time to time. But if you are one of those writers, I really hope you join us, because this is going to be super helpful for you. Okay, in the next video, the next and last video in this series, I'm going to be talking about why fiction writing is harder than any other type of writing. I truly believe it is. This is coming from my experience coaching people for almost 10 years now, all sorts of intuitive types. Fiction writing can be the most rewarding type of writing, but I really do believe it's more difficult than any other type of writing. And I'm going to also be talking about how to make it easier. It doesn't have to be as hard as it is for people. It doesn't have to be so full of angst and so painful and this sort of like dreadful task. There are lots of ways that you can work with your natural temperament and the way that you are wired as a highly sensitive person, as an intuitive person, that makes the process of writing fiction easier and actually a lot more fun. That's the thing that people always miss too. Fiction writing can be fun. It's supposed to be fun. Writing stories is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be this grueling task that you're punishing yourself with. So if you are looking to get the fun back and the joy back, please consider signing up for my new class. Okay, I will see you guys just a couple days with the last and final video. Until then, happy writing.